This is a 2-in-1 laptop. Touchscreen, convertible, and right now it's not in a good shape. The screen doesn't work, the hinge is worn out, and using it like this just feels awkward. But the computer itself still works, and that's the part I care about. I want a small PC that lives next to the projector, something dedicated, something simple, and instead of buying one, I decided to build it from this. Before thinking about how this would look on the outside, I needed to understand what I was actually working with. So the first step was taking the laptop apart, just to see what was there, what could stay, and what had to go. Laptop disassembly is always slow. Everything is layered and parts are shaped very specifically. The bottom cover comes off easily enough, but once you are inside, screws start showing up in different places, not hidden, just enough to slow you down. Once it was open, it was clear this wasn't a single board. There is the main motherboard, and there is a secondary board with power button, fingerprint sensor, and some of the IOs. That secondary board immediately felt important. It's the main point of interaction, so I knew early on it couldn't just be tucked away. I needed a clear use for this machine, something it could do well. For me, that ended up being movies. I still have a projector, and it makes sense to have a computer that lives next to it. Before thinking about the outer enclosure, designing the internal frame came first. I initially split it into two parts to print on my Ender 3, which I would later rejoin with glue. When I first assembled the pieces, I realized some PCB holes didn't align because of my measurement errors. To correct this, I exported the frame as PDF, printed it to scale on paper, and placed the board on top to check for errors. I then updated the design according to that and printed a full single-piece frame. There were still some minor errors, but it was functional, and I went with it. I prefer splitting features like the hard disk holder or fine clip into separate prints. It keeps the main frame flat and reduces print failures. It also allows me to keep designing other parts while the printing continues. The frame is critical. It determines what mounts where and how everything will attach to the enclosure. I added mounting holes and the attachment points carefully. Even so, some things can be missed. I forgot the NVMe screw mount initially, but added it later using pre-existing holes so it looks intentional. This stage is less about appearance and more about planning, alignment, airflow, and serviceability. The motherboard, secondary board, cooling system, and the battery all have clear defined places. It's a reminder that sometimes careful planning and small correction are what makes a project feel thoughtful. Once the internal frame was finalized, the laptop stopped feeling like a laptop and started feeling like a small desktop PC. Before closing anything up, I needed to be sure it actually worked. I installed Fedora as the operating system, making sure the installation would work on this machine. I'm new to Linux and honestly, I had some pretty stupid errors along the way. It took me 3 attempts to get it installed properly. Things broke, some settings didn't work, I had to fix a few problems that I didn't anticipate. But that's okay, that's part of the process. This machine has a clear purpose. It's for movies and basic use. I set it up, connected it to the projector and tested it. It works now, and that feeling of finally seeing it run is worth all the mistakes. Once the internal frame was ready, I moved on to designing the enclosure. I had a rough idea of how it should look, but the final shape was guided by the internals. For big prints like this, measurement errors are unavoidable, especially around the ports. So I designed a separate mountable plate for all the ports and peripherals. If something doesn't align perfectly, I can just reprint that plate. It also leaves room for future upgrades. If I want to add an external Wi-Fi or Bluetooth antenna, I can reprint that plate instead of the whole enclosure. With the enclosure designed and built, everything comes together. The internals drop into place, ports line up, and cooling still works as intended. This no longer feels like a modified laptop. It feels like a purpose-built machine. One key decision was the power supply. I didn't want an external power brick, so the enclosure houses the laptop adapter. Just a single power cable goes in. That small choice makes the whole build feel more complete and thoughtful. I also kept in mind that while I don't need to open the case often, access to the internal hardware should be easy without struggling. This project isn't about performance, and it's not about saving money. It's about not throwing away something that still works. It's about taking a mass manufactured object and slowly making it personal, from the operating system to the internals to the enclosure. This used to be a laptop trying to do everything. Now it's a small PC with one clear job, and for me, that's enough.
I figured you'd be apprehended feeding antifreeze to a coma patient, and then I'd be freed. I could return to my work, but you actually got away with it. You sick ape.
You're not a sick ape.
You are a sick ape.